Good evening, everybody. Here we go again. This is your Champ Chat for Sunday evening for me. Today, we are going to be discussing attacking formations, defense. What do they do in the championship? How will we stand up? What are all the other teams doing? And we are going to have a big conversation on this week. So let's go, everybody. Here we are. The gang's all here for a Sunday evening for another big Champ Chat session. How are we all doing, boys?
Fantastic.
Good.
Bit warm.
Yeah. My house is boiling as well. So windows open, fans on everywhere. Great. Cooking. Okay, so tonight's discussion topic, as we mentioned, is all about team strategy and attacking teams, defensive teams. We all know kind of what Wrexham is up to, but let's dive into the rest of the championship and get some good knowledge on the other teams. So nothing to bring up before we start, guys? I don't think so, but anything else?
No. The preseason's obviously started for everybody, and we're up and away, and Birmingham's up and away, and I guess now we're going to find out how people play.
I promise I won't mention the England v Wales game either from earlier in the Women's Euros.
I don't even know what the result was.
Don't you?
It was 5-1 last I checked.
It didn't end 5-1.
Oh, God. Okay. That's not good. That's not good.
Okay, so here we go. I have done some graphics this week, and my computer worked, so we have them. So, hey, we missed them last week, but this week we got them. So, here we go. I decided to play about with Grok, our little friend AI, and I decided to ask him what we thought about who's the attacking teams, who are the defensive teams, and who are a mixed team. And he came up with an answer. Whether it's a good one or not, we are about to find out. So, starting with attacking teams, just explain the graphic here for everybody at home. Basically, your first number on the top left is the position of the team last season in whatever league they were. So no adjustments, nothing. We know who the promoted teams are. We know who the relegated teams from the Prem are, and you can adjust accordingly. Now, because we're talking attack and defensive ideals today, I also put in their stat for last season as well. The first one is the attacking rating for their league. So Birmingham, just because they're here in the corner with lovely little ones, they were first in League One last season. They were also first for goals scored, and then they were also first for goals conceded in that league last year. Ipswich, on the other hand, were relegated down from the Prem, so they were 19th in the Prem. They came 18th out of their league for attacking goals and goals scored, and 19th in the Prem for goals conceded. That's how it's working. We have them up there just for general knowledge. We're not going to cover off every single team. We're just going to hit the big points and have a conversation on it and see where it goes. So, first up, everybody, anything surprise you here? These are the attacking teams. Should they be? Is it all wrong? What do we see?
No, Norwich is the one that stands out a little bit for me. Obviously, they finished 13th, and they were second for goals scored, but 19th for goals conceded. So, shows that Josh Sargent scores a lot of goals, but defensively they're rubbish. So,
yeah. So, asking Grok to obviously do this, it was heavily stats based. So it got dropped into the attacking teams based on second for attack, which is shown. Look, if you can score goals, that's excellent for you. But if you can't keep them out, you're going to fall way down the league. You can't really have one dominate the other in this league.
I'd imagine that'll be quite a sort of on its own now. I can't imagine there'll be many teams with a big difference between the two like that. That just seems wildly sort of far apart.
That's pretty crazy, actually. I don't think you'll find many that are that far apart. I mean, like Wrexham being 11 goals for and 2 goals against. That's pretty far, but not like crazy. But 2 and 19. That's
top and bottom.
insane.
But
yeah, it's literally top and bottom. I mean,
I even think Wrexham's is pretty extreme at 11th. You know,
a little bit.
So you're saying that Grok included Wrexham as one of the attacking teams?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what? See that I think Grok's a wacky tobacco.
They are, but as I said, the Grok is likely to just use pure stats, and it was basing it on the fact we were League One and came second.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why the stats probably overweighted it. I don't think it has the style correct, obviously.
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody in here, or most people, will be very familiar with Wrexham because that is kind of the majority of the channel here. We are heavy defensive, and the formation is generally 3-5-1-1 from the end of the season. But that's not much of a change, really. We play very, very defensive, low possession stats in general. I wouldn't pick us as one of the attacking teams, and absolutely not for Championship. No. You know, we're not going to become an amazing attacking team in the Championship. But look, if we sign some new players and get them the ball to them, we may do okay. We'll have to wait and see on that. But either way, we'll be heavy defensive.
Yeah, it is interesting. I think Middlesbrough. That's an interesting one. Seeing them, they were 5th for goals for, first in goals against, and finished 10th. That seems like that seems like an underachievement there.
I think that almost shows the competitiveness of the Championship, isn't it? That it's small margins that you can be the 5th best goal scoring team and the best defensive team in the league, but you finish 10th. You know, if you were to look at those stats just out of the blue, just say, well, you're going to score the 5th most goals in the league and you're going to have the best defensive record, you'd say, well, we're going to finish top 6, aren't we?
Yeah.
Well, you'd have to think even you'd be nudging top 2.
Yeah, you'd think so. I mean, that's pretty good.
Best defense.
Yeah.
Potentially, but I guess not everybody scrapes a one goal win like we were last season. And this is the problem with stats as well. In theory, because you're scoring 5th, maybe you're scoring a lot of goals against the weak teams, but then you're not scoring against the teams around you. So the stats can be a little misleading. But that's an unusual one with 5-1 and then ending up 10th. I don't believe I've seen any others similar to that.
Here we go. I could give Chatty some homework. How many, this will be a fun one to look up. How many 0-0 draws did Middlesbrough have last season? Which means their defense is perfect, but their attack's not great. And so
But doesn't that just go to show what the Championship's about, though? Because I mean, on the whole, you'd say you look at Middlesbrough and you say, all right, finished 10th, but you'd say decent attack, decent defense. Michael Carrick lost his job.
Yeah.
No manager's job safe in the Championship.
No. I think the formations are also quite interesting, where they're all very similar. I know Southampton played they down as the 4-3-3, but I think a lot of the 4-2-3-1 and 4-3-3 can be quite easy to interchange between the two. So I think a lot of teams that play 4-2-3-1 will morph into a 4-3-3 a lot of the time. But it's noticeable that I would say that you guys being the sort of the oddball here, whereas I would say all the other ones I would say are possession-based teams as well.
Yeah, see, that's another thing that's something that you'd have to play with your stats is where does possession play into it? Because there's a lot of most people would say if you're not a possession-based team, they would consider you a defensive team. You know what I mean? Because you're willing to give the ball away. So that's it. But that being said, so if you go back to our League 2 year and the National League year, we were fine with giving the ball away but we're also scoring,
Goals.
unbelievable amounts of goals because we're getting it forward as fast as we could and scoring. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. Like, how do you make that all? How you put it all together and make sense?
I think sadly for you guys, and Championship history kind of shows this. If you look at the average possession for a team over the season, the top 10 of the top high percentage of possession based in the league tend to be the top 10 at the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
there is the odd one or two, but I think notoriously the top sort of the top 10 possession based sides tend to make up the top 6 as well.
True, but if you'll see this as we go through with the amount of them on similar strategies. If you have the whole league weighted towards one style of possession, then yes, whoever does it best is going to have a lot of possession, and they're going to end up at the top of the league. So that isn't kind of amazing in any respect. So I would argue that's that a little bit. Okay. Back. Not finished. Right. So something that stands out for me here, just on the numbers, is before we hit the relegated teams, Watford. They came 14th. They're 14th for attack, 14th for 15th for defense. Are they an attacking team? Are they playing attacking football?
Yeah.
They're just not good at it.
They've gone through a bit of a transition, really. They notoriously do like to play possession-based, front-foot attacking football. They have deviated, I think, a little bit away from that last season under Cleverly as a manager, but as a rule of thumb, they are a possession-based. They try and play out from the back, possession-based, and they've got some wonderful midfielders as well, to be fair. I think the problem with them is it's, as the stats show, the problems have been either end of the pitch. Defensively, they haven't been great, and they didn't score enough goals. In the middle of the pitch, they were very good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't get to see a lot of Watford last year, so I watched quite a bit of Championship ball. I don't know that I actually seen them at all. I may have watched one game, but I don't remember.
They've got one of the most unlucky named midfielders you can ever have, where his name is Loser, and he's not a loser. He's a wonderful footballer.
Okay, so this then leaves us with the relegated teams from the Prem. They have all come into this list of attacking teams. We have Ipswich, Leicester, and Southampton. All down the bottom of the Prem, obviously, playing nice football originally from the Championship. Tried it up in the Prem. Guess it didn't work, and they all got dumped back down again. So we're expecting nice fancy football, nice attacking football, and back near the top of the table, most likely.
Yeah, I would say so. I would say so for sure.
Yeah.
Say Ipswich will be they'll be a team that, they'll be the benchmark. I think. I think they'll be the team right there at the top.
Except for Birmingham.
Yeah. Birmingham nipping at their heels.
Trying.
I was surprised, Ken. I was a little surprised, a little disappointed. I thought you were doing a Birmingham watch along the other day, Ken. You didn't do it.
No, mate. You know where my true colours are. I mean, but you can't say any team that spent $332 million in the off-season isn't going to go all right.
Fair enough.
I think getting back onto the point, not talking about underdogs Birmingham here.
Underdogs.
The one thing that all those newly relegated clubs, they will all be attacking, and without wanting to sound simplistic when it comes to football, they will have the best players in the division. They will control the possession most of the time, and it's like anything, isn't it? You give it's like us last season in League One. You give us 60% of the ball, well, you're going to lose, because if we've got 60% at some point during that game, we're going to hurt you 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
And it's the same with these boys.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the interesting question comes out of this. You have attacking formations playing attacking formations. It's normally the better attacking formation will win. Attacking formation playing defensive formation. Is it the better of the defense v the attack that wins, or is it the fact that the attacking team has more possession and eventually overwhelms you, or is it like Wrexham where you play with 30% possession and you manage to eke out 1-0 wins? That's the tactical side of it when you attack v attack in terms of style versus attack v defense.
That's where you get a Watford, isn't it? Where you get a team that like to try and play football and possession, and if they're not quite good at it, they end up mid-table. The truth of the matter is everyone that's in and around the top six have got pretty much the best players in the division, and they play the possession-based football.
So would it be fair to say you can't come up and play the same style of football unless I'm not doubling down on Birmingham, but they have gone and spent good money and given themselves a very strong squad, so they should be able to compete at that level now. Whereas right at this particular day, we can't. So there's the difference, in my opinion.
I want to touch on that comment from John Hills. It says, "Tell that to Burnley. 16 goals conceded and a 100-point season." That's true. But if you watched Burnley play, and Dan Moore just touched on it, they had over 56% possession. They were still keeping the ball. They were just very, very good defensively. But they had the ball most of the time, and they could score goals.
I think they were the fourth highest possession-based team in the division last season.
Right. So they were just very good defensively also. It wasn't that they were giving the ball away and playing like when we're talking about a defensive type team, like Wrexham, that we're giving the ball. We're happy to sit back without the ball a lot of the time against teams, and sometimes we've seen it. The fan base gets frustrated, when we just continually give the ball to other teams. I think towards the end of the season, we started to get a little more possession. I think that was part of Parky's change of what he wanted to do. And so that makes sense. But for a lot of teams, though, I've got a question. I want to throw this out there to you guys and see what everybody thinks. It seems to me that the teams who don't have just the overly better players, that don't have the best squad, they compete by playing a more defensive, compact style, and that's how they keep themselves in games. Do you guys agree with that? Is that too overgeneralized?
No, agree 100%.
Yeah. With how tight the league is, if you can pull off your defense well, and occasionally pull off the wins, it can make a big difference for you. Because it does not matter if you come up against the best team in the league and get smashed 5-0. If when you're coming up against the middling teams or the other weak teams, your defense holds up and you scrape the 1-0 wins or the 2-1s and win by a single goal, the points are all that matters. So it's that question, can you do it often enough? And because there's only 10 points between relegation and mid-table, you can shift your position quite a lot if you can pull off those wins. I think it's teams that can never pull off a win are the ones that get absolutely screwed because they just can't get those 3 points. And drawing and getting a single point a lot isn't enough. It won't be enough at the end of the season.
It's that old adage thing of that there is no right or wrong way to play football. The only best way of playing football is winning football. The elephant in the room in terms of the Championship is you go back to the Neil Warnock era, shall we say, of when he was successful in the Championship. His teams were never attacking teams. They were low block, very defensive, but they were organised, tough to beat, but they were consistent. And that consistency would get you promoted. The problem is the Championship shifted probably about 4 or 5 years ago, where teams just went to be more possession and attacking based. So those low block and the Warnock team, shall we say, found it hard to keep pace because they would go away from home and pick up a 0-0 or 1-1 draw, and in that format it was always deemed it's a good result. The problem was to keep pace with the other teams, they need to go away and win games, and your window of success when you're a defensive team is a lot smaller to go away and win games when you're in a low block and you're playing for that 1-0. So yeah, that's where it's kind of shifted. I mean, there are exceptions. I mean, Luton got promoted to the Premier League via the playoffs, and I would say they weren't an attacking team. They were a low block defensive counter-attacking team. I would argue that probably the best team in recent seasons at playing, shall we say, defensive football and being successful at it is Millwall. Millwall are probably the pinnacle of a team that play low block, don't mind giving the ball away to the opposition. But again, you would argue, and Millwall fans would argue, that it's took them as far as it's, their best finish is like 8th, 9th. They can't seem to push above that.
Fair. Yeah.
And that's the caveat is does that style of play get you to a point, but then you need something else to get you over that last hurdle.
Mm-hmm. So just for I'll throw this out there just out of curiosity. So last season in the championship, the possession, who was ranked, what their percentage of possession was. So first place was Leeds, was 61.6%. Second place was Norwich, 58.2%. Third place was Swansea, 58.1%. Burnley was fourth, 56.9%. Then it's Middlesbrough, Coventry, West Brom, Watford, Sheffield United was only at 51.5%. And they were one of the big teams, so that surprised me a little bit. I would have thought maybe they would have had a little more than that, but not, they're right around that 50% mark. So, and that they were in 9th. 10th was Bristol, 51.1%. Hull City, who finished one spot above relegation, were in 11th, 49.9%. And then as you go down, you are starting to get to the teams that were at the bottom. Now, to John's point, Millwall was 23rd, 42.5% possession. And they finished what were they? Ninth
or 8th.
Yeah. So, they were right there fighting that. I mean, they had a shout at a playoff spot.
And
so
to those numbers, Aaron, you only had to get to 4th with Middlesbrough at 56.9, I think you said.
Or it was fourth was Burnley at 56.9. Yeah.
So 56.9. Now, there's a very fair argument to say that's not possession-based football. Well, it is, but they're trying to play possession-based football. But there's a fair argument to say that's 50-50 with your opposition. Your opposition still had 43%, which is still a lot of possession.
Yeah. I mean,
it's over a course of 46 games, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
So,
when you average it out.
Average it out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like us last season. I can't remember off the top of my head what our average possession, but it was like low 60s, I think it was. And to be honest, there were games where we had like 80% possession against some teams. So, it is hard to get, leads with 60% odd. That's kind of unheard of at Championship level. Anything above sort of 53, 53% on an average of 46 game is you are keeping the ball very well.
Yeah. The other thing as well for you guys that probably brought the percentage down is there was plenty of matches that you played that it was clear you did not care about the opposition. Like, you know what I mean? There was no stress whatsoever. Have the ball if you want. We've already scored.
Yeah.
Play around, mess around, take the ball, waste the time. That's fine. We'll take it off you whenever you push up the field. But then if you're not up the field, we don't care. So you're not worried about possession in those scenarios as well.
That's what John just in the chat just threw that out. John Hills. You get certain teams where they'll pass it around they'll hold possession for the sake of having it, and they'll just pass it around behind the back, at the back 3 or back 2, whatever the formation is playing, and they'll just pass it around to the back, and they're not threatening, but they're holding on to the ball. That's it. We dealt with that against Luke Williams when he was at Notts, and Parkey was happy to let him hold on to it. And I don't think it's
press him, so it looked like a lot of possession. But it wasn't quality possession.
No, exactly. It's it's funny. I was listening to it was actually last season. I was listening to the manager for Indy 11, which is our local pro team here, and they he was talking about he likes to focus on, because if you watch them, usually they'll have about 45% possession. They're happy to give it away a little bit and play a little setback and play a little more defensive, but he likes to focus on possession in the final third. And so even though a lot of games Indy 11 will the overall possession, it'll look 55-45 to the other team. When you look at the possession in the final third stats, they'll actually dominate that. And and then they had a really good Indy 11 had a really good season last season, and they dominated in the final third, in the opposition's final third. So it's interesting how different. It was interesting to hear it from a manager and how he looked at it, and how you're getting a different take. It seems like some people are happy to just have the ball, because you could make the argument, if we've got the ball, they can't score, right? And that's a fair argument, but you could also make the argument, well, you're not going to score if you've got the ball in your own half, and you could also make a mistake in your own half, and now the other teams gets a chance. And we saw a lot of that in League One last season. Teams giving the ball away right in front of their own net, trying to play the ball out the back, and just look, especially early in the season, it was bad.
Especially trying to play 4-3-2-1 and thinking they were. It was
just passing. Yeah, they're trying to look cute, and they're giving goals away on some really bad stuff. It's just interesting, the different ways to look at it, and it's all, like John said, there's no perfect way, there's no right way. Anything can work on a day.
Yeah. Just to finish off that discussion before we move on, John had a message earlier that I was looking at. If I can bring it up, is this one? No, wrong one. Hang on. Here. Basically, John is saying that Norwich can also use the other strategy. We were talking about defensive teams, that they can just go full on attack and risk losing a match in order to take the 3 points by pushing for goals as well. So taking the risk of getting the 3, averaging it out at 1.5 rather than going defensive and risking a goal on the other end, which is kind of the other strategy that we didn't really discuss too much, was an all-out attack for a weaker team who's trying to push the points just by taking wins and risking a draw to a loss in order to gain the extra points. So I thought that was fair comment as a counterpoint to the defensive teams.
It is, unless you're coming up against last year as an example, a Stevenage who gets the goal against you early and then just sits parks the bus up 1-0 and says, now try and beat us with 10 men back.
Yeah. But that was just a counterpoint that they're an attacking team, obviously, and a weaker one. Yeah.
You're lucky you had teams parking the bus when they went 1-0 up. We had teams parking the bus when we were 2-0 up.
Okay. Then we have a comment here from Stand for Truth, who I'm not aware of or have seen before. So in the comments, Stand for Truth, let us know who you follow. But I'll bring up your comment here before we move on. Birmingham were supposedly a deadly rival to Wrexham. He doesn't think so. Do your fans think going all the way to Australia is a good idea for a friendly 2 days of jet lag? So I'm a little mixed as to which side he's on here. John, do you want to take that one? 2 days of jet lag for our team?
I'm guessing he's a Birmingham fan because he mentions Birmingham, possibly. I do half agree with him about the deadly rival. I mean, not deadly rival, but yeah, the media portrayed us as rivals, but we weren't really rivals, to be honest.
It was good marketing.
It was good marketing.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
If you indulge me of put my Birmingham hat on for a little bit, you can't finish 19 points above second place and consider them a rival. Going all the way to Australia, I must admit I'm a little bit baffled by it. I understand from a marketing point of view and all that. The thing from reading about your pre-season thing, there isn't any other pre-season games currently scheduled after this Australia tour. Correct me if I'm wrong. Which to me, I would say I'm not sure that's the best preparation. That's, to me, from the outside looking in, goes, well, that's a marketing and a money making tour, which has took precedent over the football tour, shall we say? Because I'm willing to bet any money, if you had asked Phil Parkinson, would you prefer to go to Australia for a pre-season tour, or would you rather go to Spain, Portugal for a week and then play some domestic clubs and friendlies? I think we all honestly know what he would pick.
Okay. Well,
yeah, go
ahead. It has been commented that we are looking to play 2 friendlies at home, away. Well, because obviously our pitch isn't going to be ready. They haven't been announced yet. We don't know whether they're going to happen. I'm still assuming they will. As Brian says here, we've got 3 weeks before the season kicks off when they come back. So a couple of days jet lag may not be the end of the world.
There's a great addition to that too, Paddy. Like, okay, so every team's players get rest days, right? So if the travel is very well organised, the travel's organised on the rest days. Then on top of that, the X factor in it, whether it's Australia, New Zealand, America, Asia, doesn't matter, is that you get the whole squad away out of the prying eyes of the English media as in general. Also, you get them bonding in the hotels, spending a lot of time together, building relationships as players together for the upcoming season. And I think it creates a stronger knit team having that extra time doing that. Because away trips are notorious for that. They go into camp and they're just isolated from everybody else and they're just together and getting to know each other on a personal level, not just a professional level.
Yeah, but you could get that by going to Spain for a week.
Yeah, but the problem is you go to Spain, it's close enough that they bring family, they bring kids, it can happen. And also they're too much in the prying eye, whereas here they're totally out of it. There's been a lot of media down here, but to be honest, they're being left alone. They're going to their training and they're in the hotels and there's not a whole heap of people around them. So I think that's a plus of it. I'm not saying it's perfect because like they had 37,000 people at the game the other night, which is more than triple what they get at Wrexham. So great money spinner, but is that worth coming all this way? I'm in Australia, I say yes. But from the team perspective, great question.
Okay, 2 comments here from the chat because they're really involved in this one. Right, first one up. It's no mystery. Wrexham thrives off marketing. Why is it a surprise that they prioritize being a global brand and generating income from traveling? So I can understand that. If that's not taking in the football elements, so that's kind of just purely marketing. Yeah, our money gets us our players get us our wins. So c'est la vie. You have to accept it. That's fair enough. And then Brian says, didn't do us any harm last year either. Now, the first season, they messed it up a little bit. Let's say potentially they overcooked it and weren't back rested for the start of the season. But last year didn't do them any harm. They got back early enough. They looked rested. We got a good start. 4 out of the first 5.
Yeah, so, and they'll be back. They'll be back plenty early. We're like 3 weeks before the season kicks off.
Yeah,
we'll be back. So we'll be back with plenty of time. Everybody will be recovered and we'll be in good shape. I don't think it'll be a problem.
The huge caveat with that is last season was League One, and I ain't gonna lie, lads, League One was honking compared to the Championship.
Yeah, that's fair. But for us, though, we did it after we got promoted out of the National League and going into League Two. We looked like dog shit our first couple weeks because we did the American tour and didn't get back until 6 days before the season kicked off, and it was bad. We looked bad.
I think what I'm probably trying to get at with my overall point to that was that the jump from League One to Championship, in my eyes, in English football, is the biggest jump in quality in the English pyramid. The gap between League One and Championship is a chasm. People all talk about Premier League and top of it's big, but it isn't as big as League One to the Championship. This is a real eye opener. This is, and I'm just a little bit surprised that your predominant pre-season is being taken in Australia, playing against teams that down there. I would have thought maybe in this particular jump up to a league like this, they would have actually focused probably more on the football side rather than the commercial side, if you get me. I mean, if you get the 2 behind closed doors or whatever it is pre-season games after that, then fine. It's just when I saw that those were the only pre-season games, I was like, that's just a bit strange. That's that's very much a commercial decision, not a football decision.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's a fair. I don't think the competition level is great.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't disagree with that. But if they can get back, I know there was talk. Wolves was one that was rumored. Initially, they were Everton was talked about, and I don't think that's going to happen now because I think they scheduled somebody else on the day that was rumored. But if they can get another Premier League team, and get it, because the American tour was basic. It was what the last year was. What you had Bournemouth and Chelsea. And then we played the Whitecaps MLS team.
Yeah.
And then the year before that, it was Chelsea, Man U. Who else we played for? Played Philly Union. There's one more, and I can't think.
Great memory, Aaron.
I think who the third one. I can't remember who the third one was. Yeah, but there was another or the fourth one. There was 4 games that first year. I can't remember what the fourth one was.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, ultimately, pre-season means absolutely diddly squat. It means
right.
It's a fitness exercise.
Yeah.
I think, like you mentioned, the previous pre-seasons, that's the perfect storm, isn't it? You go away, you got the marketing thing, but you're playing good quality sides.
Good quality sides.
The thing you don't want to do is go into a championship season half baked because you've not really. Yeah, you might be fit, but quality wise, you've not come up against anything, and then you hit the championship and bosh, it's like all of a sudden it's a bit of an eye opener. You're like running around chasing shadow. You just don't want that to happen, do you? And every team's the same as that. So proof of being the pudding.
Yeah.
Okay. So back to topic then. We jumped off there for a few other side conversations, which was good.
I blame Ken.
I'm not running this show.
I blame the chat. No, we love the chat. Thank you, guys. Moving on. Right. So here we go. Defensive teams, according to Mr. Grock. Let's see. We have Blackburn Rovers, Bristol City, Preston North End, Queen's Park Rangers, Sheffield Wednesday, Stoke, Swansea, and West Bromwich Albion. So, what stands out here?
Swansea's an odd one.
11th in the table, 16th for goals scored, and 10th defensive.
Yeah, I mean, they're a team that definitely. I mean, they were 3rd highest in possession last season, so that's a weird one. Yeah,
there's not many anomalies there. That's pretty fair representation, I think. I mean, obviously, the one team that I think might be really hurting this year, interesting that they were 20th in defence, was Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yes, quite a lot. Pretty well.
Relatively
speaking, yeah.
West Brom, a defensive setup, Paddy, and managed to finish 9th.
I wouldn't say they're defensive, though.
No, but I mean, that according to this graph, they are. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I was going to say I would respectfully have an argument with Grock on a few of these, to be honest. I would say Blackburn, Stoke, most definitely defensive. Preston, most definitely defensive. QPR, defensive. Very counter-attacky, but defensive. Bristol, Swansea, Albion, even Sheffield Wednesday weren't particularly defensive. They would play front-footed football. Sheffield Wednesday, as you could tell, the biggest Achilles heel was defensively. They were awful. They looked like they would score 3 goals, but equally looked like they'd concede 4 or 5. And yeah, I mean Albion, the 3-5-2 is a bit misleading because the wing backs they played were pretty much wingers, so they did play pretty attacking football. Obviously, against the top boys, they would go defensive because you can't go toe to toe with Leeds, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's horses for courses, but I would say as a category, there's a few there which I wouldn't stereotype as defensive sides.
Yeah. I feel like Millwall definitely would fit in here. Millwall defender should be in there. Derby County, especially once they made the coaching change. Yeah, I think
Luton as well, I would say.
Luton, yeah.
Defensive side.
Of course, they may not have counted. I don't know if Grok was looking at last.
No, we didn't look at
No.
Luton there.
No, because they may not have been part of it. Yeah.
Here's a question from Andy. Swansea third highest because of Luke Williams. I'm guessing that was third highest possession.
Yeah, they were third highest possession.
So is that because of Luke Williams holding the ball, playing in his own third, and doing nothing with it?
Well, I think they call that the Swansea way, don't they, John?
They certainly do. It's the Russell
Yep.
Martin way as well, which is, pass the ball 6 million times in defence, bore you to death so you fall asleep and they just kind of quickly nip in and score a goal. Yeah, it's probably the Williams thing at the start of the season, though they did make a change in manager towards the end of the season and he didn't suddenly deviate away from that. They were still very possession based, but I would say they were possession with purpose rather than 6 million passes between the back four and go nowhere.
Yeah.
I was sorry. I was looking at a comment and I was like, why can't I figure this out? Gene, Blackburn only played with 8 players, 4-2-2. Yeah, that's an error of mine. Is 4-3-3
and still came 7th. Like, that's good going. Imagine if they get a full team.
Well done, Gene. Thank you. Made me laugh.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. We just want to skip through these.
Yeah, they've seemed fairly they're fairly self-evident to me. I mean, I'm not seeing anything that blows me away.
Okay, well,
as an anomaly.
We had a quick word on West Bromwich Albion. What about Stoke and Blackburn both using like a 4-3-3 style? Anything on that?
Stoke's
because most don't. Like most are using 4-2-3-1. So maybe just a comment on that. Oh, okay.
Yeah, Stoke's the interesting one because I would imagine that their preferred formation will go to a 4-2-3-1 under Mark Robbins. I think obviously last season he had to make do with what he had or what he inherited. I think once he gets his stamp on that side, it will be very much a 4-2-3-1 possession-based side. So they're the interesting one where I expect them to probably change quite a bit compared to what we've seen Stoke do in recent years. And I would say similar to Blackburn, they will probably go the opposite way under Valerian Ismail. They'll be very defensive and people who think Parkinson's long ball, wait till you see this guy's tactics. My God.
Okay, so will Stoke be any good at it? Like, will they have the players for it, or are they actually going to just shoot themselves in the foot?
It'll take time, won't it? I would probably say, do they have the players for it right now? No. Do they have some players for it right now? Probably yes. But Robbins is a smart operator at this level. He'll do what he did at Coventry, which will be slowly but surely, window after window, he will transition them into a very good side if he's given time. So, yeah, I'm not saying they're going to suddenly start coming out like prime Barcelona next season, but it will be a gradual process because he knows you can't do what Wayne Rooney did for us, is just basically get a bunch load of defensive-minded players and just say, right, lads, here's a football. You're going to pass 5 yards instead of hoofing it that way. So Mark Robbins is, sensible. So he'll have them. It'll be slowly but surely.
Okay. And the stats for attack and defense seem half decent. For the positioning, nothing crazy out of the window here. Different. Okay, so moving on then, nicely past all these teams. Oh, into the last 8 that were put down as mixed. So, do we think they should be in attack or defense? We have Charlton, the last team to come up from League One. Coventry, Derby, Hull, Millwall, Oxford, Portsmouth, and Sheffield United.
Yeah, that's interesting. Millwall, you would think, like, I don't know, we already talked about it, but I think that's a more defensive team. Charlton, I think I would. Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting that their goals for was only 10th in League One. That's
Great
surprising.
defense.
Actually. Yeah, better defense than I thought they. I mean, I guess when we played them, they didn't look that great. You know what I mean? Like defensively, I wasn't blown away by them defensively either time we played them. That's interesting. Just seeing that.
Okay, well, what's the guess on what they're going to do now in the championship? Because they have recruited well, pretty much for their level of spend. You know, we wouldn't expect huge spend. They seem to have done well. They've gotten in players, so they're having a go at it. Are they going to try and go defensive and nick a few wins, or are they actually going to go and attack?
Well, to John's point, what I'm seeing here in this trend now is that the teams that aren't as great in attack and are a bit weaker defensively, stronger defensively, but weak in attack. Weak in attack, strong in defense, aren't going well in the championship.
Yeah.
Like you need to score goals. And that seems to be the general trend here.
So they're going to need to step it up, basically.
Yeah, well, all teams, if they want to do well, are going to have to score a fair few goals. Like, you know, I mean, and when you did look at the championship last year, I mean, it was super tight. So, you know, goal differences, like when you go all the way down to, if I pick a team that's right down in the lower end, you know, and I'll go down to, you know, let's have a look here. Let's go for Oxford United, who finished 17th with a minus 16 goal difference, you know, and on 53 points. So they only scored for and against. Oxford United, 49 for and 65 against. So, you know, you go, oh, okay. And they're, look at that, 17th and 18th. So there's some pretty indicative numbers with a minus 16 goal difference. To be safely out of relegation, you've got to be fairly close to neutral in your goal difference. Like, you know, minus 8 to 0, you're comfortably away from relegation, if that's what you're aiming for. And if you want, obviously you're going to have to well be in the positives if you're looking for making the playoffs.
I think the interesting thing with Charlton in particular is what's going to be their aim this season. I mean, I think their aim this season will purely be survival. Has to be survival. Which I think, if you look at the signings they've made, they've all been defensive-minded signings. You know, the goalkeeper they've signed I think it's a fantastic signing. Sadly, the other players they brought in defensively, I think, have been very good as well. So, I think Nathan Jones is doing what he did at Luton, which they will be horrible to play against, and they will base their season on trying to nick enough results or just be dogged and tough to beat, which will get them over the line in safety. That's predominantly what they're aiming for.
Well, interesting. The 3 teams that just survived relegation are Hull, Preston, Derby County, had minus 10, minus 11, and minus 8. I mean, there were teams above them with worse for and against, but those 3 teams with a very closer to neutral over a long season, you know, to only have a minus 10-ish number, probably going to get you home. It's going to be scary, but it's going to get you home.
Yeah, it's the mid-table sort of dogfight, isn't it? I say mid-table, but it's It's the bottom half of the table dogfight, isn't it? That's the thing. So I mean, I think looking at that graphic, the one that kind of stands out for me is you look at Hull, 8th defensively, but 20 rock bottom on goals scored. So, I think it just goes to show. I think, like you said earlier, Ken, is your defense can be as good as you like. If you can't score goals, you're in trouble.
Well, the most you're going to get is a point, isn't it?
Yeah,
draw. You're not going to pull that 3 points often enough to get you up the table.
Yeah, and you look at Millwall's goal scored 21st, which is,
Well, I'll tell you what, boys, this Champ Chat's made me very nervous for this season now.
Shoot, now we'll be all right. There's outliers. If you look at before he left, Blackburn were up at the top playing very defensively. I know what's his name, John. I'm having a brain.
John Eustace.
Eustace, when he was at Birmingham the year before, playing the same sort of way, had them up right around the playoffs. John will argue that he wasn't that far off the bottom either, but he was still right up there around the playoffs. It's doable. It's doable. There are outliers, so you can play that way and still do it. It's not many teams do it. And I think somebody in the chat put it earlier. If 90% of the teams are playing the same way, then it's likely that style is going to be the style that ends up at the top of the league, just based on that's just the style of what there's the flip of the coin. But I think there's also, to be fair, I think there's a reason that teams play that style, and it's because it is successful.
I think the caveat with John Eustace, just to pick on that, because he did the same with us, he did the same at Blackburn, and he's doing the same at Derby.
Yeah.
His teams will notoriously always start the season very well because they'll be very fit, they'll be very organised, and they will nick results. The problem is with that is they have one way of playing, and by the time you get to November, sadly, the rest of the entire division know what you do, and then you start coming against teams that you've played already, or they've had enough sample size to look at what you're doing, and they counter that, and all of a sudden what you were good at doesn't actually work out. I mean, prime example, I watched it for 2 seasons where, I remember us going away to Norwich once where, to be fair, we were on a good run of form. Norwich were fighting at the playoffs and that end of the division. We went to Norwich and we didn't play bad. We just played like we normally do. And then we were 2-0 down after 20 minutes, just because our threats were just nullified because they had done their homework and what we had done every game week, and at that point the season started to turn, and it always did, unfortunately for Eustace, where not that he didn't have a plan B, but his style and his philosophy would work till a point, and then the second half of the season would always be a dogfight, sadly, which happens to a lot of teams like that. You can be as organised and as you like, but managers and teams are not stupid, are they? The amount of analytical, information out there and homework people do and the scouting and all that, teams get figured out. So if you are very one-dimensional in the way you set up and play, teams will counter it eventually.
Yeah. Well, I got a question for the three of you. Would you say what I've watched I've watched a fair bit of Championship football. When teams are playing a 4-2-3-1, would you agree that in the Championship, the opposition doesn't press as much in defence, lets them hold the ball in their back third a little bit, and doesn't really press the opposition until they get into the middle third? There's not a lot of pressing in the Championship in that back third to try and apply pressure, unless it's late in games and they're chasing goals.
I don't know if there's not. It just depends. I think it depends on who you're playing, because there are teams that will absolutely press the crap out of you, but there are also, a lot of times you get those matchups where Leeds is playing a Derby County, and Derby's not going to be pressing. They're not going to be pressing Leeds in the back, in their third. They're going to be setting up. They're going to be sitting deep and just trying to absorb it. So
I
think I think there were games there. I've seen some games where, and it's not just necessarily. I don't think the formation has as much to do with it. I think we're putting a little too much into the formation, like too much. Because here's the thing: you can play a 3-5-2 and be a possession based attacking team. Like you don't have to play defensively in a 3-5-2. That's not that. There's nothing to say that you can't play a different style. You play your wing backs a little further up, and you can go after it, and you try to control the ball in the midfield and hold on, short passes. And actually, with a 3 at the back, you can do a lot of passing the ball around at the back and just holding it for no reason, just for possession's sake. So I don't think it's necessarily a formation thing, but I don't know. There's definitely teams. I wouldn't say that you won't get it. I just don't know that a lot of times the matchup makes it where you would get a lot of that.
Yeah, I think it comes down a little bit to the relative difference between the two teams, because you need to be generally on a sort of a similar ability level in order to press in their third. Because if you're not good enough at doing it, if your team is weaker and you try and do it, they will play around you. And by the time they get around you and your players can't get back defensively, you're in trouble, because now they're on a quick break and quick attack on you. So if you're the weaker team, often I think they hold off and keep a more rigid formation, a more compact formation, and make you play through their stronger defense. Like we've kind of said, you play defensively when you're a little bit weaker. So I think it comes down to the relative difference. And then also another issue you can have is if the two teams are actually kind of just as good, it depends on how they choose to play. Sometimes they both back off and they both kind of play defensive and sit back just a little bit. And they both sit there and play against each other. Becomes a boring game of football, and they're both waiting for the mistake. They're both waiting to catch that big mistake, catch a loose pass or whatever, and break through them, because they all have players good enough to get through on their own and have that shot on goal. But yeah, it varies quite a lot.
I mean, the other thing is, I mean, people like to throw the press term around quite a bit. But to be a team that does a high press or does press the opposition, you've got to be a brave side, because you've got to press as a team, and you've got to be very confident in your defensive structure, and your press has been very good, because I think, as you alluded to, Paddy, if you press and teams are good enough and they play through you, all of a sudden you're caught with 4 or 5 players out of position and you're very, very exposed at the back. And if you're up against a good side, you'll hear Josh screaming danger, danger from somewhere. But I mean, for point, no one pressed us last season, not one team. I say that's a lie. There was one team in the entire league last season that pressed us man for man, and that was Barnsley at home, and we won 6-2 or whatever it was. They were the only side that spent the whole game almost man for man pushing us, trying to nick the ball off nick the ball off in our 18-yard box.
Yeah, they paid the price for it.
And they paid the price for it. So it's one of those, it's horses for courses, isn't it? I mean, it's if you're up against a Charlton, maybe you think, we can press these guys, or an Oxford, you might press them, but you're not going to go to Ipswich and Portman Road and say, right lads, let's push and press high, because you'll be picking the ball out of your net 2-3 times in 20 minutes.
Well, I'm going to leave it to the experts now, because I do have to jump, guys. I've got an appointment I've got to get to. So I'll let you guys drop those pearls of wisdom for the rest of the show. And we'll
Hard out for Ken today. Thanks, Ken.
Cheers, Ken.
I'll see you later, boys.
Thanks, Ken.
Talk soon. Okay, let's give it a minute before we start shit talking, Ken. Right. Another point I did think to bring up here from our little graphic is Coventry. We've kind of said this a few times, but basically come to the conclusion is if you want to be at the top end of the table, so in playoff spots, let's say, with Coventry, you have to be pretty close to strong attack and strong defense. You need both working together, or you're just going to fall away somewhere. And it doesn't matter which one doesn't work. But Coventry here, they ended up 5th, and they were 4th in attack, so they got quite a few goals. But then their defense was a little bit weaker with 13. But I'm assuming, without looking at the results, that they pulled out the attack when it mattered. You know, in their defense, they probably lost a couple of extra goals in matches that really didn't matter. They'd already lost it. You know, it was too late in the game or whatever. But that can kind of show the grit you might need to pull out the results in the right way, in the right matches. And when the league is so tight, the way it has been the last 2 seasons, that determination, that teamwork could really get you over the line on some of the matches. So that whole, I know Wrexham says they have the teamwork aspect, they play for each other, the dressing room. Let's hope they have it again this season and it works out, because one goal leads and 1 goal wins are scary as all hell. And they certainly will be in a new division again, with some of the opponents we'll be up against this season for our side of it.
Yeah, I think Coventry's stats there probably are skewed by their start of the season, because they were awful at the start. Because that's, I think, why, you know, as Mark Robbins unfortunately paid with the price with his job. But I think they were in the bottom 3. I think it was like for the first couple of months of the season, they had an awful start, which they always seem to do, Coventry. They all start the season terribly and then just go on this unbelievable run for 3/4 of the season. So,
yep.
Okay, so any other points we can think of on this attack defense debate? Do we need to discuss any of the new managers? Are they going to drastically change their teams, or have we already mentioned the couple that are necessary?
I think we've touched on a couple, and to be honest, some of them that have came in, I'm just not that
familiar with them.
So that's gonna be tough for me to say much about them or see them.
There's certainly a few question marks over a few which no one knows what they're going to come out with. I think an interesting one will be Sheffield United under Ruben Sellers. That'll be interesting to see what he does there. Whether, because Wilder, as successfully was, he had his style. I wouldn't say it was attacking. I wouldn't say it was defensive, but it was. You didn't get many teams that played like they did. Obviously, I don't think they'll keep the same style, but what Sellers will do with them, I don't know. That'll be interesting to watch, because you do get the feeling that it's either going to work really, really well, or they're going to be looking for a new manager in 3 months' time.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. I started a couple of comments here that were a little bit off topic that I wanted to go back to. So I will pull those up first before we hit any other major topics. So from earlier, okay, this was off topic, so I didn't bring it up. But since we're talking about the tour, can we talk about having Tozer and Foz as Wrexham ambassadors? Is this foreshadowing? Now, what do we think Patrick means by foreshadowing? I know this is more on a specific team, so we'll just briefly talk about it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the foreshadowing necessarily means. Maybe it's just they want to bring in some of the players that we've had in the past over the last few years. I think they're too good. I think those are 2 good guys to bring in for something like that. And they're basically just using them as they're doing part of the the training stuff they're doing with the youth kids down there in Australia. Being around, I don't know if they're doing them much on the match days. Have you seen anything doing? Have they done anything match day wise? Have they been part of stuff, or has it just been the little practice? The training sessions they've been doing with the youth.
Well, Tozer has been brought in numerous times lately to discuss the team and talk about them, do some ops and discussions like that. So he seems to be trying to maybe bring this up as after retirement gig, a bit of a bit of punditry. So maybe the club is also willing to work with him and see where that may go in the future. Foz is an interesting one. In my head, I would not be surprised if he just rang up the club and said, I fancy a little trip out to Australia. How about you cover the flights and accommodation, and I'll do a bit of stuff while I'm out there. And then obviously I'm sure he's doing his own videos and stuff for his channel. So that's probably just an easy link to work together with those.
Glenda said Foster didn't access all areas on YouTube. I haven't seen that yet, so
I'm biased. I'm biased. I love Fozzie. Bless him. Obviously,
yeah, he's good.
Yeah, he played for us, and he was the goalkeeper when we won the Carling Cup. So forever a Blues legend, that lad. So, and if Tozer is doing more punditry work that keeps him off Sky TV, so I don't have to listen to him being a pundit, I'm all for that.
Is he that bad as a pundit? I've heard him as like a straight pundit.
Yeah. They drag him on occasionally on Sky and in the UK to do the sort of the evening games. He's the only person I know that stands next to Clinton Morrison and makes Clinton Morrison sound intelligent. And I love Clinton Morrison too. He's a lovely guy, but come on now. So yeah.
Okay. So here's another one, interesting question. Let's see if we can answer that. If a manager feels the need for some major change in strategy or formation after the game is in motion, how does he communicate that?
Loudly.
Yeah. It's funny. I like watching the what's their name? The little club in non-league. Shoot.
Oh, I know.
A bunch of amateurs does the behind the scenes stuff. Dorking Wanderers. Mark White. He's got like a signal, and he'll tell his goalkeeper to go down. So you don't bring if the goalkeeper goes down, they don't bring him off. He can get treated and not have to come off because he's the goalkeeper. So he gets treated, and while he's doing treatment, he's got the whole team over there, and he's like, "All right, we're changing this." So there's ways that managers can kind of cheat the system. But I've seen things like where they'll send a player on, and they'll send him out with a piece of paper with notes and say, "Here, guys, this is what we're doing. We're making a change. This is what we're doing." It's really interesting the way, because it's not easy, because the game doesn't stop.
There's a great clip from many years ago. It was in the Championship as well. I think it was Ross Wallace for Sheffield Wednesday at the time. Oh, it might have been Burnley. I can't remember. But somebody sent on a player with a little note to give to. So the substitute comes on. He runs onto the pitch. He's like handing the note over to the captain. The captain reads it. Ross Wallace just runs up. The opposition player runs up, nicks the piece of paper out of the captain's hand, reads it, and then just hands it back to him and then runs off. It's hilarious. So. But the goalkeeper one infuriates me. I have to say, it's my new bugbear in football. So many teams did that to us last season, where the keeper would just go down in the hole. I have to say, Ryan Alsop was brilliant for us, where it got to the point where it was getting ridiculous. Like teams were doing it 3 or 4 times a half against us. And I think it was about midway through the season. I think Exeter were the first team we come across that did it. It just boiled Alsop's piss that he just couldn't take it anymore. So when the manager had them all over in the huddle, Alsop, instead of just coming over to our touchline, he literally just walked over to the opposition and just stood next to their huddle on the side of the pitch, just listening. And their manager was going apeshit and all this at him. And of course, Alsop was looking at the referee saying, "I'm stood on the pitch. I'm allowed to be here." And of course he is. So they couldn't get rid of him. So he just stood there. So it completely messed them up. So I thought, that's a good way of countering it. But yeah, it annoys me, that tactic, I have to say.
Right. So we need a new topic then. Let's hit some of the news from the Championship this week. And we were going to speak about, once again, Chef Wednesday. And the rumours that are floating around that a deal has been done or / a deal is imminent for a change in ownership. Do we think it's going to happen? Is this real? Is this just more smoke and mirrors?
I've got a little breakdown here I can throw out there for you, Patty, for everybody, people that don't know what's going on. So Sheffield Wednesday is reportedly close to a takeover by American billionaire Tillman Fertitta. While an agreement is not finalized, documents have been signed by at least one prospective buyer, indicating a significant step forward towards the sale of the club from current owner Dave Chansiri. Fertitta, owner of the Houston Rockets, is a leading figure in business and sports, and has potential purchase, good Lord, I can't read today, could bring much needed stability to the financially troubled club, according to some news outlets. So, yeah, that's the rumor right now. Obviously, nothing's for sure. Who knows? Who knows with Chansiri? I mean, he could kill it at the last minute. You just don't know with this guy.
I think the key is he's run out of money, hasn't he? I think that fundamentally that is the bottom line is he's run out of cash now, and I think even he has realised that there's no way of winging this. He's got to do something. So I think I read a report that they're basically about 4 to 5 million in the hole, where they need to find funds pretty much straight away. So
right now.
I actually think it will go through, and I think it will go through rather quickly, because it's like anything, when there's a desire on both ends of the deal to get it done, it will get done. What that actually has an impact on Sheffield Wednesday, I actually don't know. Obviously, the embargo, I think, will probably still stay in place. I'm sure if the new owners get control on that, they'll probably appeal it. I don't know whether that will have any basis of an appeal or not, but I'm sure they will try. And of course, I do wonder if Chansiri is going to ask potential new owners to not loan, but as part of the deal, stump up some cash to pay some outstanding wages, because I know the players which are essentially given their notice to say they want to leave their contracts, they essentially have the club have 15 days to pay them from that notice period. So I wonder whether Chansiri might say to this potential owner, look, I need 3-4 million quid right up front to pay the remaining wages. That way, when you do get control of the club, you are not going to lose players. Yeah. So I don't know is the honest answer. I have no idea. I haven't seen it, but I'm just wondering if that might be some part of the deal that he might put in place to see. But ultimately, it's good. It's good news that they'll get sorted out, because they're a big club and no fan base deserves this. So
from all talk, the 3-window exclusion will stay. However, other elements like the 7,000 a week wages, once the new owner can show they have the funds available, I assume stuff like that will be released. And then I suppose you're in a scenario that they just have to go out and find the best players available who don't have a transfer, who don't have contracts.
Yeah, I mean, there is a right to appeal it. I know, obviously, like you said, in theory, by all accounts, it will stand. But there is a right to appeal it if new owners come in. There was some sort of caveat I did say. I think it was Kieran Maguire mentioned it, where he did say if new owners were in place and had control of the club, he said the EFL. He said, contrary to what people think about the EFL, they are there to help clubs. So if a new ownership comes in and they appeal the transfer ban and stuff, then they're not going to purposely just screw over Sheffield Wednesday because that's the in thing to do. He said, if there is a way that they can help them and try and lessen this transfer window ban, then they will. So it'll be interesting. But ultimately they can't sort of just wipe it off because it's new owners, because they still have to have some degree of sort of a scare tactic for potential other owners which fall down the same trap. So the punishment's still got to have some teeth, hasn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
It's a weird one, because I do want punishment to have teeth, but once he's gone, I do kind of think it's fair for the club to get a restart. New owner, new restart. As long as everything is cleared, everything outstanding has been sorted the way EFL would want it, I have a soft spot for letting them move on and save their club.
Ultimately, the question comes down to if he's gone and new owners come in and you've still got, say, 3-year transfer ban, who are you realistically punishing? You know, the guy that caused all the problems is gone. So you're just punishing the club and the fans, which they couldn't do anything about it. So it's a bit unfair in my eyes. Like you said, it's if new owners come in, you gotta say, well, okay, clean slate, you guys go ahead.
Yeah, I just hope there isn't issues that remain with his multiple companies and the way he has broken up the club, because he really needs to hand them all back and make a clean deal. Maybe he's willing to do that because he knows how screwed he is, because there's no way he'll get through this season without points deductions and other issues on top. So the likelihood of staying up in the league, if he does somehow try and remain on, is ridiculous. Hopefully somebody's got it into his head. If you don't sell this club, you will be relegated, and your club is going to be worth very little when it gets dumped down into League One compared to what it is even now. No one's going to take on the debt for that at that point.
Yeah.
Okay, so that one's covered. Now, the other one, we just had a comment there from Esteban. Isn't there a second team in trouble? Yes, there is. And news came out this week as well that apparently they have outstanding payments of in the region of 22 million, I believe, if I've got that number correct, that are still owing to other teams, and that they have sent out emails basically begging, please can we pay you later somewhere down the road, we don't have the money. Now, why multiple teams would do that, I don't really know. If you think you're one of multiple debtors, or you're one of multiple debtors, when you get a letter like that in the email, you send one back saying, on time, not an hour late, thank you very much, or I will be having the lawyers send you some nice mail. Other clubs don't really have an incentive to help you out, generally, especially if you're in the same league. There will be a few in the same league that have sold and done deals with them, and I know there are certainly some in the Prem that are owed money as well. So let's continue this topic. How about it, boys?
Yeah. That was wild. That was pretty crazy, the amount of money that they have outstanding. And yeah, I mean, I don't know, as far as other teams helping them out. Like, I definitely can't see a championship team being helpful at all. If they've any, I don't know who they owe the money to. I haven't seen a breakdown of it, but if there's a championship team they owe money to, I can't see them helping them out at all. I mean, maybe if you're another team, well, maybe if it comes down to if it's a couple months and we can actually get our money, or is this team going to go under and could potentially not get our money and have to fight it for years and years to get it? Is it easier to you know what I mean? Maybe there's something there. I don't know. I don't know if that's even a thing, if that's a fair argument at all.
Esteban's asking which team because we didn't actually say it.
Oh, Hull City.
The one that has come out for a lot of scrutiny is that they still owe for the loan of Louis Barry. Was Louis Barry? Yeah. And that loan hasn't been paid for, first of all, because they wanted to purchase the contract. So they haven't even paid for the loan, and they wanted to buy him. So that's fallen through the floor, obviously. But there are other players outstanding to the tune of 22 million in debt.
Yeah. What happens is you get teams where they'll agree.
Yes, they do.
That's funny. That's funny right there. So what you'll get teams where they'll buy a player. So they'll say, we'll agree a £5 million fee for a player, but they'll structure it in such a way is maybe they'll pay 1 million this year, and then in 12 months they'll
next year,
pay
2 million
another two. Yeah, and they'll break it up so they don't have to pay it all in one, and it doesn't. I don't know how financially, and I don't know if you guys know. How does that change for your PSR, or does the whole 5 million go on that, or do you, when you break it out like that, does it help you? I don't know. That I don't know.
This is where creative accounting comes into play, shall we say, for PSR, because essentially what you do is if you spend 5 million on a player, for example, and then you sign him to a 3-4 year deal, for argument's sake, on your PSR, you essentially you divide up the wages and the transfer cost all in one lump, and then you divide it by the length of the contract. So, like, say it's 5 million, and say it's, I don't know, for argument's sake, it's another 2 million in wages. So it's 7 million in total. You divide it by 4, it's a 4-year contract, and that yearly fee then goes on your PSR report each year, which is why, for just using Birmingham as an example, we signed Stansfield not for 15 million as the reported price.
25.
20, yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, essentially it was closer to 10, 12 or something along those lines, but we signed him on a 7-year contract. So ultimately we still have to pay whatever we've agreed to pay Fulham in its own, that's like almost a separate transaction. So we may have sort of agreed that we're going to pay 50% now, 50% next year, whatever it is. But on your PSR, it could be 15 million plus wages divided by 7, because it's a 7-year contract. Right. So all of a sudden, a huge transfer outlay actually only becomes like a million or a couple of million quid per year on your PSR. So all of a sudden, it's kind of like, okay, well, you bought a really expensive player, but actually PSR wise, it's not really even touched the sides. So
so as far as PSR goes, it doesn't matter whether you spend the full 10 million this year or whether you split it up with the team that you're buying, through multiple years.
Yeah,
you're still going to spread that, and that's the amortization, right? Is that?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And of course, on the flip side, if I'm not mistaken, if you sell a player for X amount, and then it could be over a period of blah blah blah, raising to whatever it is, that doesn't work the other way. So if you sell a player and he signs a 4-year contract, then it doesn't matter about it dividing over 4 years. If you sell a player for 7 million quid, for example, well, 7 million quid goes on your PSR straight off the bat.
Straight off, right?
So it's one of those where that's why they say clubs can not get round PSR, but that's how you work PSR, is that you can sell a player for 1 million quid, and then you can buy a player or two from 3-4 million quid, and you've used the money on PSR wise for the sale of the one player, if you get me.
Right.
So that's where all of it comes into play. So
gotcha.
The problem is that works fine for a couple of seasons, and eventually it catches up to you. If you do it badly, of course. Yeah. If you do it well, you can balance it every season. You can play about with the numbers. You can see them coming in advance, because it's a 3-year rotating cycle, and whatever you do 1 year will affect you for 3 different seasons. So if you can play the numbers well, you're okay. If you get that wrong and you get bad seasons, and God forbid if you get relegated, it can seriously hurt you in those scenarios as well. So over time, that's bad. Now, I asked a question the other day, or actually someone corrected me. I was saying that in Wrexham's scenario, because we have very good accounts and a lot of income at the moment, we would be better taking in the player, paying full whack for him, and then just clearing him off the account, because after 3 years, then it's gone from your books. Now, I was told you still have to amortize across the life of the player, even if you want to get rid of it in one go and have it on this season. So in 3 years, he's done forever. And apparently you can't do that, even if you want to, which I find silly, personally. If you want to front load all your debt and pay it off this season because you have space, I think you should. Unless I have bad information there. But that's my belief with our scenario. Not many clubs are in that scenario where they can buy in a couple of players, pay the whole whack in one season, and still have some space, which we probably do at the moment. But look, either way, it doesn't matter. We can divide it down over multiple seasons and should still not be an issue for us with the revenues we're generating.
Yeah, it's a whole aspect of management which, as the standard football fan, you don't really consider, do you? In all honesty, because it's more like an accountant's question rather than anything. But I suppose as like managers go, when they're sat there with like deciding players, you do have to decide, well, do I sign 3 or 4 players this summer and spend big money and go for it now? But that does have an impact on my next year's summer and then the future, the year after, and that. And you do have to think that far in front. And then, of course, then you've got the whole caveat of all that going on is the life expectancy of a championship manager is kind of like, I mean, if you were in their shoes, you say, well, do I really care what the financial thing looks like in 3 years? Because realistically, I'm not going to be here in 3 years' time. So do I want those 4 players? Yes, I do. It's a whole aspect of management, which football fans probably don't, and I'm the same, I don't give an awful lot of thought to, where, they have to weigh up all possibilities of, going for it in one season, or the risk of, do we sign 4 or 5 players at high value, and what happens if 3 of them don't work out? Then all of a sudden my transfer budget for January is massively impacted. Minefield.
Yes, Patrick asked a question here. You could pay off players up front and not have a loss, so does it matter? Unless I am incorrect here, you're not allowed to do it even if you want to, starting off. So let's say we bought a player tomorrow for 20 million and decided we have the space in our profit and loss that we can just spend the 20 million now, put it on the account and not have a loss. And then it's gone because in 3 years' time, it's no longer on the books at all anywhere. Then we're not allowed to do it. You have to divide it over the 4 years of the contract at 5, 5, 5, and 5. It's just the way they adjust it on the accounts, and you can't choose. They've decided you always amortize, end of.
It's a bit daft in a way that essentially what you could buy a £20 million player, and you realistically actually could pay 20 million quid up front to whoever you bought them off, and you've paid the money. But on your PSR accounts, it's split over the length of the contract, irrelevant of whether you've paid 100% of it off or 50% of it. So that's where PSR is a bit stupid in that regard. But a lot of people argue it has worked because, it has. There's a lot more teams in the Championship now which are, shall we say, following the rules than they were before. So it has had an impact and it has worked, you would have to say.
Yeah, and there are those that are still trying to get around them. Maybe more in the Prem, I would say, probably than Championship, because there's much more play in the Prem, I guess, than there is down for teams in the Championship, because they only have so much money coming in. They don't have as much leeway with it. The problem is, like, everybody talks about Chelsea and the way they have amortized originally over like 7 and 8 year contracts, which has been stopped now. That's no longer allowable. But they are still playing the game where they are using other tricks. Every season they're coming up with a new trick. So they've sold a hotel and moved it between companies. That's technically a sale. It's more profit. They're okay with the BSR. They're selling women's teams. Okay, overinflated prices. They got away with it, but they've now made more profit. At a certain point, all these loopholes will be closed. And if they have not gotten back in order by that point, you would argue it should have happened already, but they're playing the game, which is allowed, unfortunately. And at some point, the leeway will run out.
Yeah, I mean, I without wanting to sound like, Birmingham podcast or anything, but our owner came out with a great line, I think it was a year ago, regards PSR and all this. He said too many owners in football, in English football, Premier League and all throughout the leagues, he says, are fixated on trying to find loopholes and workarounds without actually addressing the actual problem. He said, if you just actually create revenue and drive your revenue streams up, you could spend what you like. So instead of actually looking how to get around the rules, just adhere to them and just build a better revenue stream.
Yeah. And look, we're going down a massive rabbit hole here. But for me, like, previously, and we've said about Chancery as well, dividing up your club, dividing it into different companies, playing about with stuff like that as well. To be honest, what I would kind of hope PSR should do is do it the other way around. Well, okay, we'll allow them to have non-football revenue, and just tell them, okay, make profitable businesses, put it in the same company as your football club, and then make as much profit as you want, and do what you want with your club. And that, I think, is the Birmingham model that they're trying to do now, of having the surround of their new stadium kind of all be in the same company. And look, if you're just taking rental profit or leasehold profit from all these companies that are surrounding your club, and you're making a ton of money, but you want to put that into the football team, so be it. I've no problem with that.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Obviously, with our complex which they're building, is the government white paper is essentially it's estimated to make £370 million a year. You know, that's income, that's revenue. And if the football club's front and centre of that, well, yeah, you can buy who you want, can't you? Because ultimately, PSR rules, that's how it goes. I think I read somewhere the other day, Spurs' stadium makes them on average on a home game 5.5 million per home game. You know, you take, this is where I hate football, because it has turned into a money game. But that's where football is. It's about making money, and unfortunately, the ones that make the most money are the successful ones. You know, that's how it is.
Yeah, for me, I would prefer the successful ones to be generating revenue from somewhere, because we keep talking about profit and sustainability. Your club is sustainable if revenue is coming in that you're then spending, unlike just spending from a rich owner. I don't particularly like the idea of a rich owner coming in and just having so much money he can dump 150 million into players in that scenario. Now, if you want to dump your 150 million into other projects which generate the revenue, and then it's part of the club that you can't take away without selling the whole thing, so be it.
Yep.
I find that better. At least, it's working the way sustainability probably should.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I don't know is I know with the PSR rules, there's what is considered a footballing loss and what is considered a footballing income, isn't there? And that's because certain things don't appear on your PSR balance sheet, like infrastructure, for example, training grounds and all those things. You can pump as many millions into that as you like. None of that actually counts against your PSR. So, you could go out and spend 30 million quid on a training complex. Doesn't hit the PSR one bit. So there's, I wouldn't say there's loopholes, but it gets a bit too, for me, it gets a bit too picky and choosy about what is included and what isn't included. And ultimately, the thing that annoys me a little bit is I always get the impression with the EFL especially is that they don't like clubs like us, both of our clubs, where we generate, shall we say, income from off the pitch. Whereas I always get the impression that the EFL are quite traditional, and they, their way of how clubs should generate income is, well, you bring through youth players to your academy, you make them into great players, and then you sell them for, tons of dosh. That's what they want clubs to do. But unfortunately, football doesn't work like that anymore, because everyone knows that if you get a good young kid through the academy, by the time he hits 14, he's probably been signed by Man City or Chelsea or something. So it doesn't work, does it? So yeah, it's as they always say, football's broken, and especially the Championship financially.
Yep.
Okay. So on that positive note,
I do have a couple little championship related things
Cool.
happened today. So, or one's a possibility, one did happen. Borja Sainz, I don't know how to say his name correctly. Norwich left winger, scored 18 goals, 4 assists this season. He has been sold to Porto for a reported 14.5 million, could reach 16.5 with add-ons. So that's a lot of goals out of their team, but that's also a lot of money that they can spend on replacement or whatever. So that's a big one. I think we talked about that before. That was one of the ones that could be leaving. Josh Sargent is the other one. He could be leaving too, maybe. But maybe since they sold him, maybe they don't have to get rid of Sargent. But seems like from the American side, from what I'm hearing, I think he wants a move.
Burnley want him, don't they? Apparently,
is Burnley now? I know they were. I heard who was it? German, one of the German teams. I don't think it was Dortmund. It was somebody, one of the bigger German teams were interested.
Wolfsburg?
Maybe. That could be. It was definitely a German team. I can't remember who it was off the top of my head. It was rumored, so I don't know if there's anything to it. But there was definitely at least a German team interested. But yeah. So he's, that would be another move. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out with Norwich and who they get for replacements.
They have already signed somebody, didn't they? They signed a striker. Yeah, they signed it. I've never heard of him. I think he was some Norwegian. They signed for like 5 million quid. So I think they got him in. But Sainz wasn't really a striker. He's more of a winger, really.
Yeah, winger,
yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people were sort of saying the striker they signed midweek, everyone was kind of speculating, that's the Sargent replacement, shall we say. So, but I think Sargent will go. It's a natural progression for him. He's it's in the gaming side, he's completed the championship, hasn't he? It's time to move on now.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so you're talking about Matthias Kvistgarten.
What you said, yes.
Yeah, that's
for a reported 8 million euro fee.
Okay.
Matthias Kvistgarten.
That'll be interesting. And then the other one I had, just real quick, not huge news, but there's a possibility with if Victor Gyökeres goes to Arsenal with a reported fee on that deal, there's a chance that Coventry City get about just a little shy of 5 million out of that deal. So that'll help them. Some more money for them to spend. So yeah, it's just another, more money for other teams. But it's championship news, so I figured we'd throw it out there.
Yeah, Coventry are also rumored to be selling the left back, aren't they? The Dutch guy, I can never say his name, Van Overdijk or Van Overdijk or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of interest in him, and he'll go for big money, I think.
Yeah. They may have big money to spend then. Be interesting where they spend it.
To be fair, that's what Coventry have done the last couple of seasons. They've always, I would say they had Harmer and Gyökeres, didn't they? Where they sold for big money, which kind of funded them to rebuild the squad to turn it into the top 6 championship side it is now. And if they sell another player or two for some big bucks and get obviously another sell-on fee, they'll be looking to push again.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm just hoping they don't push too much because there's a Coventry fan at work and I've got a 20 quid bet that we finish above them. So.
That's good. That's all I had, Patty. So.
Okay. Well, then I think this has been a decent week. I am going to put the shout out there for anybody who is in chat. We need a main topic for next week at the moment. So if you have something that you would like us to go over that you're interested in, do give us a shout in the Discord. And we'll see if we choose your topic for next week. And talking about the Discord, I'm going to throw the link out for anybody who isn't in the link. We are a friendly bunch. We are mainly based around Wrexham, but we do allow other fans of other teams to come in and chat about everything in the championship, as long as you are also friendly and don't take the piss too much. Although we can take a little bit of it. We don't mind too much. So link copy, here we go. Boom, and it is posted. So come join us in the Discord. Obviously do subscribe, thumbs up, all that good stuff, comments, everything like that is helpful. And if there's a few guys here from other teams, thank you very much for checking in with us. And we will be doing more champ chats. We have this main show once a week, and we also do some during the week as well for members only. So thank you to everybody who is watching, and we will catch you next time. On that bombshell, we are getting out of here. Take care, guys, and bye-bye.